Jamie, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series, man. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's excellent. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're doing and entertainment and gaming and why all that stuff is important. So,
And
yeah,
why
thank you.
Jamie's doing it and all
Oh,
that
yeah,
stuff.
and why I'm doing it. Yeah.
I love your place there. It looks
Oh,
really
thanks.
comfy, cozy, focused, good color.
Yeah, well, it's the third floor of my house. Like a lot of people, I work remotely. My team, all of us, we've been fully remote since we started, and it might not be so comfortable in a couple of months. The third floor gets really, really hot in the summer, so we'll see. We'll see how it lasts. But
And
yeah,
there's this new thing called air conditioning.
I totally get it. I totally get it.
It's an amazing invention, but I know what you mean because I grew up in Montreal and we actually didn't have air conditioning for a long
Yeah.
time and we made it through. But here's a great way to start. If you could introduce yourself before we get to the business part,
Yeah.
about where you're from originally, where you are now, family stuff,
Yeah.
what your favorite color is, maybe something you've never told anybody and you want to reveal it now to the world, stuff like that. So
Sure,
you're
sure.
on.
Yeah, so you already said my name, Jamie Van Doren. I'm the founder and CEO of Neverending. I'll talk a little bit about that, but I'm basically a Clevelander now, Cleveland, Ohio. Been here kind of most of my adult life. Most of my family is in Michigan, kind of small town Michigan near Detroit and Ann Arbor. But I grew up in Topanga Canyon, California, between Malibu and the San Fernando Valley. Super beautiful place, but such a disparity between rich and poor, and that informed a lot of my life. I grew up extremely poor, extremely poor. I wasn't very connected to the Latino community. My biological father was a Mexican immigrant. Um, my mom's intellectually disabled, has been her entire life. um, but eloped with my stepdad, so that was all interesting and complicated. But anyways, I left California. I was actually homeless almost a year when I was 13, and eventually, just some circumstances, I finally reached out to my grandfather and was like, "Look, my mom and I need to come back to the Midwest." And I've been in the Midwest since. Made some friends in Cleveland. Came down to Cleveland, loved the area, and I've been here ever since. It's been fantastic.
Well, Cleveland has a good reputation of family and
Yeah.
welcoming, and there's some that this is going a little ahead, but there's studies that have been done over and over again that says the thing that fills people's hearts and souls more than anything is belonging,
Yeah.
and it's true. We all need to belong some way somehow and whatnot. You mentioned step before, not to get too
Yeah.
offline.
That's okay.
My son's is married to a Danish girl, and she said in their country they don't use stepson, stepdad, stepdad.
Oh.
They use bonus, bonus daughter, bonus dad. And isn't it awesome?
I love it.
Speaking of stories, how that
Yeah.
perspective changes because movies would always put step people as almost evilish in a way, and it doesn't make any sense if they are or not. But so I just share
Yeah.
that because it's another way of telling a story that should be a good way to do it. So
Yeah, the language that we use really impacts our understanding. The language that we use provides a lot of context. And so bonus dad, bonus son, bonus daughter, those are great. Those are great terms.
it's
Those
a
are great
bonus,
terms.
man. It is. It should be. Let's put
Yeah.
it should be. So with your
Well, in this case, it wasn't. My stepdad was unfortunately my stepdad was a very damaged person. Had been through a lot. He was an alcoholic. He was a drug dealer. He struggled, and that made him say and sometimes do things that were really terrible things. It wasn't necessarily that he was a terrible person at his core, it's that he was a deeply damaged and flawed person. And that's something, that understanding of that there's a difference between somebody who is just bad, which is easy to say, and someone who is just very, very damaged, very broken. And I think a lot of people are on that spectrum of brokenness and hurt. And what's that saying? Hurt people hurt people. You
right.
know, so so it's one of the things that's kind of informed my approach to everything, which is empathy.
Yeah, that's what I love. And we'll chat about that too
Yeah,
because we all get framed and formed and molded and
Yeah.
what by experiences. So when you
Yeah.
grew up that way, like you said, in extreme poverty, what were you like as a kid? Did you your imagination just going somewhere to take you away? Were you a young entrepreneurish Michael J. Fox Family Ties type of guy, or what were you like?
I was a weird kid. I was a weird kid. I was really smart. I've always been really smart because I was it was much easier for me to connect with adults than it was to connect with kids my own age, in part because kids are mean. Kids are mean. They just sometimes they don't recognize how hurtful, the things that they say can be, or they hear other people
There,
saying things. But as a little kid, like I I was super energetic. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's comorbid with the tic disorder, so I can't take Adderall or any of the other stimulants because it would make my tics really extremely noticeable and uncontrollable. I use some cognitive behavioral techniques to manage my symptoms, and for me, many aspects of my ADHD have actually been a benefit. But at the time when I was little, that impulse control made it a challenge. But I was always highly imaginative. When I was little, I wanted to be a superhero. I would run around shouting "Shazam!" hoping that I would turn into Captain Marvel, which unfortunately never happened.
well, how do you know? Maybe you have.
It's Well, there was no cape and no red tights, so I'm assuming that
Well,
the
the tights would be good.
superpowers
I'm
didn't
not sure I
happen.
want to visualize the red tights, but
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
yeah, but that had to be hard because you're right. Kids are the great thing about kids is they're uninhibited and they tell,
Yes.
but also that can be cruel. To your point,
Yeah, yeah. But I did become more grounded as I got older. When I was a little older, I went from wanting to be a superhero to wanting to be a doctor. In high school, I kind of went between wanting to be a doctor and wanting to be a business leader. Once I found out that I would have to like operate on cadavers at first and cut people open, I did not want to be a doctor anymore. That was like out. But that desire to be an entrepreneur never left. Because in part, the folks that I saw on TV who were most successful were business leaders, and I wanted to escape the environment that I had
right?
been in, and I didn't want to be defined. I didn't want my life to turn out the way that it had for my mom and my stepdad. I wanted something better for myself, and so much about what we understand to be normal, who belongs, gets communicated to us in movies and in TV. And movies and TV, it's the really successful business guy who has everything that he wants. He's got all this money. Sure, he might have challenges, but he has enough to eat. He's not sleeping on a filthy mattress on the floor. He's got clean clothes.
Yeah.
He's not dirty. He doesn't smell. He doesn't have people making fun of him. So, of course, I wanted that.
And
Um,
and success can be way different levels based on where you're
yeah.
at that point. So yeah,
Yeah, but I wanted the top. I wanted the top. I've never been satisfied with just getting by. And I don't know whether that's because when you hit a certain point, even if you fail, you're still doing really well. I mean, I've always shot for like the top, like the best of the best, because even if I miss it, it's still better than average.
yeah. No, I get that, and that is the way to go. Tell us what intrigued you to go into psychology
Oh,
at
yeah.
Case Western, and then really a journey into education, clinical research, and even sales and marketing. All of them seemingly touching on what we call the human element.
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't really go to college until I was an adult and could work my way through. So I had a job at Case Western Reserve University in the Weatherhead School of Management, and so you'd think that I'd go for business, but I went for psychology for a couple of reasons. One, it was since I was like having to do it while I worked, it was the shortest track. So there was a pragmatism to it. Like the core was only like 30 credits, and it meant that it was easier to fit in with my work schedule. But I had a really strong interest in it because I've always been fascinated about how and why we make the decisions that we make. I saw my family and people around them make awful decisions that affected them, affected others, affected me. And I couldn't understand how somebody could make those types of decisions. So learning why we think the way that we do, how our brains work has been fascinating to me. And all of the interconnectedness between nutrition and brain and body and well-being and wellness and society and social connectedness. So that was really powerful for me. And it also, I still had this desire. I thought I might want to get my PhD. I'm one for kind of trying to keep some doors open,
Mhm.
and that was a door that I wanted to keep open. And I knew that a basis in psychology, being able to go then for my PhD could still land me in doing something really fantastic. But I did spend a couple of years in clinical research, and while I loved it, I absolutely loved connecting with patients. I loved working on really important things and answering important questions. The pace, the pace was not for me. There's a lot of
Too fast, too
bureaucracy, which is
fast,
understandable.
too
Too
fast.
slow, too
I know.
slow.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I value the IRB, which is the review board that makes sure that any human study is safe and equitable and that it's not taking advantage of people. But that pace and the bureaucracy was just too slow for me, and I wanted to do something bigger as well. And sales and marketing is just something that I've always been attracted to, and it has been a theme in my career.
What experiences did you have that and knowledge gained and whatnot that influenced you're starting to think about or maybe continuing to think about equal opportunity for people in general? Let's
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I mentioned earlier that like growing up, I didn't see people like me in movies or TV. And on one level, you don't really think about it. It's just kind of there in the background, and it seems like, so what? So you don't see yourself in TV. But as I said, so much about what we understand about what is normal, who belongs, who doesn't, whose story is worth telling, gets communicated to us through the media that we consume. It's the people that we see in movies, on in TV, even the most popular like YouTubers or TikTokers. And not being seen reinforced to me that maybe I wasn't important. It had me wondering, like, how important could I be? Can I accomplish anything if no one in all these TV shows comes from a background like mine and they don't make it? I mean, just really quick aside, if there was somebody who was Latino or who was poor, the message that I got was that they had a good job as a janitor or
Right.
working in a restaurant. That's not aspirational.
Yeah.
They managed to not go to jail. Is that the message that you want a child to have? That what they're shooting for is not going to jail and being able to sweep floors as a janitor.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that job, but that's not an aspiration. And so, I realized as an adult that so much about that so many people kind of feel that same way. And they're always going to feel that way until there is more representation in media, but Hollywood is not positioned to tell everybody's story and represent all of us. They can't. They'd go bankrupt. They have to. They spend tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on a movie budget. So it has to appeal to the largest population, which means stories that would appeal to 100,000 people, 10,000 people. That story isn't going to get made, and
However,
that's a shame. Go ahead. Yes.
yeah. However, populations are changing. People are changing. I do remember. I'm older than you, where women on TV were supposed to be excited when their husband came home and got them a vacuum cleaner for their
Yeah.
birthday and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Which was like, and the woman was supposed to be super happy that they got a
Yeah.
vacuum cleaner. Now, if you're a homemaker and that makes you happy, that's cool. But that's not what you wanted it to be, and on and on and on and on. What you're saying,
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell once said that um, we always seem to think that we've got to go to get somebody from somewhere else to come in and be the expert on something, even though you may have the best expert in the world right here. And but the bigger thing he said was that try speaking to the cashier at your local pharmacy and see what kind of great stories she or he has out there that is
Yeah.
pretty significant and real at the same time. With that said, can you describe how Neverending actually came about?
Yeah.
Especially after what was a different industry,
Yeah.
yet you had a powerful experience at North Coast Community Homes. I want to get it right in Cleveland,
Yeah.
what you were doing there. So share about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going to take a step backwards first because one of the things that's important to note is that in the earlier days of video games, when you played a video game, chances are it was by one of the big studios. So prior to 2005, okay, it was probably by Activision, Electronic Arts, Sony, Nintendo, something like that.
Right.
But after that time, there was this big explosion in indie gaming, and that came about because of the financial crisis and because all of a sudden technology had caught up and there was this opportunity for people who are passionate about games to create them. Now, I've always been passionate about games and everything. Video games, tabletop games. What I mean is like pen and paper games, like Dungeons and Dragons, not just board games. And in fact, one of my earliest memories from of having a great social experience was from high school, which is sad, but because but the fact is that I was playing Dungeons and Dragons with people, and it was the first time that my clothing didn't matter, my background didn't matter, none of that stuff mattered. The only thing that mattered was how well I contributed to the story, and that was really powerful for me, and that has been something that's stuck with me, as well as just that opportunity in whether it's a video game or a tabletop game to play someone else, to be someone else, to try new and different things. And that's been kind of the core and the crux of this. Now, in terms of how my professional career has led to this, my background is not in animation or gaming. Like my personal is like I love cartoons and I love games. But there were a few key experiences for me. One was actually before North Coast Community Homes when I was in clinical research and I was doing patient interviews and having patients just asking questions, mind you, no counseling, no giving advice, just asking them detailed questions and actively listening. The amount of times that people would break down crying or thank me effusively just because I was listening to them, listening to their answers was so powerful to me. And then at North Coast Community Homes, they're a fantastic nonprofit. Look them up. They do housing for people with developmental disabilities or severe mental illness. Very meaningful to me because my mom is intellectually disabled. She spent a little bit of time in adult foster care, which was a horrible experience for her because it was very dehumanizing. North Coast is not like that. They're great homes and beautiful neighborhoods. But intersecting with those people, those folks, both the parents, their parents, their families, and they themselves had wonderful things that they wanted to share, wonderful things that they wanted to express. And it was just, for me, recognizing that there are just so many people who don't feel connected, who feel disconnected and isolated because they're not having this opportunity to express. And that's really powerful for me. And I want Never Ending to be able to be a tool for people to start being able to have this level of expression. And I want us to be something that explodes the way that indie gaming exploded. I want us to have something that becomes now indie video games are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. I want these animated stories to be everywhere because everybody loves animation. It's easy. I mean, you look at like The Simpsons, one of the longest running shows, South Park, another one of the longest running shows. People, it's easy to consume, it's fun, and I would love to have us be able to give everyone those tools to be able to express themselves in a new way without having to live in front of the camera and to have these stories just be everywhere.
Yeah, I love that. I love the emotion behind what you're saying about those people just felt disconnected. It goes back to what we talked about belonging. It's the opposite of
Yeah.
belonging, and
Yeah.
and it's not just stories. It's actually great stories that they bring
Yeah.
to the table, and
Yeah.
great experiences and stuff like that. And you're really doing something disruptive and daring, I think, and
Thank you.
brilliant in its purpose and simplicity. And I like the quote that you had. I think it's a groundbreaking platform that will help move social content from selfies, which is cool, to storytelling. And
Yeah.
can you share how you're going to be able to, as you also put, unleash a new wave of creators out there,
Yeah.
helping everyone have a chance to be seen?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to use that example that I gave before, how in indie gaming 2005, like prior to 2005, and then in 2008, the layoffs. One of the things that made that possible was not just the financial crisis where suddenly all these video game developers found themselves out of work, was that the technology had progressed enough that 3, 5, 10 people could work and put out a video game, and have it be majorly accepted and make a lot of money.
Hmm.
Technology is now at the point where, by leveraging video game technology and AI tools, we could literally turn anyone into a pro animator. Anyone. And we're actively working to reduce the time it takes to create animation by 10 to 20 times. So right now, if you were to use a product like Adobe After Effects, which is one of the most common products, it's going to take about 45 hours to create 1 minute of animation. So
Wow.
if you're a content creator and you've got a full-time job or a part-time job, it's just not doable. And you also have to be a digital artist to use these tools. We want to cut that time to 1 to 2 hours, and we also want to make it affordable for everybody. So these studios are, when they're developing all these animated series that you see, it's costing anywhere from like $125,000 to $250,000 per 23-minute episode. That is so far outside what anybody could afford. Like, that's wild, right? But imagine if you could do that at the cost of $10, $20, $50. All of a sudden, that's amazing. And the way that monetization happens now for content creators is mostly through ad monetization. They're basically praying to the YouTube gods that a little bit of ad revenue rains down. Um, and that means that they've got to have at least 10,000 followers to make any money. But how we want to do it, we want to make it possible for you to monetize with as few as 100 followers. And once we do these things, when we make animation fast, affordable, and where you can make real money doing it, we're going to completely revolutionize the industry, because suddenly it's something worthwhile. It's something that you can actually make a living at, which is fantastic. And I think that that's going to be just uh, such a revolutionary disruption. And I think it's imminent. Even if we don't do it, this is a disruption that's happening. It doesn't matter if Neverending is the one that's successful. I mean, it matters to me and it matters to my team.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is that even if my company were to fail, this is happening. The same way that Netflix came along and disrupted MGM and the other major studios, these tools are coming, and they're going to be a disruption to the Netflix of the world and the Amazons and the HBOs and so on.
Which is the way it should be.
Yeah,
Uber, Lyft, disrupted taxis. I mean, if
yeah.
we're not looking, like you said, if we're not looking for better and more importantly, I'll put it this way: Fifth Element. When we launched 5 years ago at the UN, actually,
Mhm.
the whole premise was that businesses and leaders and their communities can do way better when doing good at the same time.
Yeah,
So you're doing good by giving people this opportunity, which may even help them not only personally, socially, but even in their businesses
yeah.
to take it. Can you describe how you balance making it, as you said, you don't want to fail. How do you balance the economic results being positive and the incredible impact you're making, for people, families, communities as well.
So I believe firmly that businesses cannot thrive in a world that is crumbling. You just can't.
Right.
Not, you might be able to be short-term profitable, but what are you going to do when the world falls apart and society falls apart? So for me, I see that not only can we do well by doing good, that it's a necessary component. And one of the things is that we have from the beginning focused on ensuring that we've got minority and marginalized representation, not just because I'm a minority, but because there are, if you look at the entire world, and I know some people aren't going to like that I'm saying this, but there are more black and brown people than there are white people. And we have to, if we want this tool to be global, if we want this to take off, if we want everybody to be able to connect through storytelling, then we need to have that level of representation. And we need to have that built in early. And that doesn't just mean, racial, cultural, ethnic. It also means like disabilities, for example.
Yep.
All of us, if we live long enough, we will all be disabled. It is just a fact of life. And we are all, and this is another thing people don't like to talk about, but we are all one accident away from being disabled.
Mm-hmm.
Disability is the only minority status that you can acquire. And yet we don't see it, and we don't see it represented well. So we've started in that space, and I think that it's doing a couple of things. It's making sure that we're not having to go back and backtrack and try to plug this in. So we're immediately appealing to a much larger audience. Additionally, we're creating a brand that says we actually do care about people, and we're a part of the world, and we're in your community, and we're supporting your community, because your community is part of Never Ending. And I think that that is a competitive advantage in the long term. Yeah. So I think these are good business decisions to make, both in the short term and in the long term. And for me, it's not a balancing act. It's not a balancing act. It's how you do good business, and it's how you're going to be successful.
And that's why you're on a Leaders Who Care series right now, because that is the whole ballgame. It's not fluff anymore about caring. It's not. It actually is a good business decision as well. And you were going to say,
I want to say something to that. So one of the things that there's sometimes there are people who push against diversity, but the fact is that people from different backgrounds and experiences see problems in a different way. I'm able to do Never Ending because of the background that I had, because of these challenges that I faced. I saw something that other people might not have seen, and I see a solution that other people might not see. And because I don't have a background in animation, I'm coming at it from like, how would I, as a regular person, want to do this? How would I, as somebody who does not want to spend 6 hours, 8 hours, 3 hours trying to make a scene work, how would I want this to work? That diversity is not just about skin color, orientation, gender. It's about the fact that people come to the problem with vastly different perspectives and possibly vastly more innovative solutions.
yeah, without a doubt. The fifth industrial revolution is about humanity, and the fourth is about technology, the AIs, the open, chat GPT and all that stuff. That is to serve us for being better humans and more successful humans and working together. And you're so right. Diversity is one aspect. Inclusion is, if you will, the bigger aspect.
Yeah.
It's what's that expression about you can get invited to the dance, but then you need to be able to dance also, which is the inclusion part. And the populations are changing. And diversity is not just, like you said, about black, white, green, blue, whatnot. It's the experiences that you bring to the table that give you the different perspectives. And my best clients, when it comes to impact or even talent, ask me for finding people that are out of their industry to come into positions for different perspective. This isn't rocket science. Actually, it's you embrace. And just real quick, a nonprofit that's a partner of ours has a program called Nonflict, which is about looking at conflict totally differently. Conflict is just different ideas. You want conflict to have different ideas. Conflict isn't for hating people, it's for getting different ideas and how do you transform it into non-conflict and so on. So there are people that think great things like this and how to do it and you're doing it. And I I love the fact that this is very scalable globally.
Absolutely.
That's the plan, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are building a unicorn right here in Cleveland, Ohio. But I want to see people all over the world using this. There's no reason why they shouldn't. And I think that it's important too, because right now the state of social media is incredibly unhealthy. You know, uh, the more people are on social media, the more they recognize that it just doesn't make them feel good. And that's because so much of the focus is on the self, is on the person, and on trying to portray this perfect life or this idealized version of you. But the way that we used to communicate things about ourselves and about our experiences was through storytelling, was everything from just talking about our day and experiences that we had been through to sharing actual stories, folk tales, myths, legends, all of that stuff. And giving people the tools to do that again is really powerful. And you mentioned AI. We plan on using AI, but in a slightly different way. You know, we want to use AI to help people polish their stories, to bring real cinematography principles into it, real animation principles that they wouldn't know, but the stories will still come from them. And I think that that's really critical because I've played with Midjourney and Lensa and a lot of these different tools, and they're fun. But they lean into something that I think can be problematic. So when you were a kid, when we were all kids, we drew, we colored, we told stories, and we were proud of what we made. And at some point, some adult came along and said, "That's a dog? That doesn't look like a dog." Or they said, "That could never happen in real life. You could never fly. That's silly. You're never going to be an astronaut." And we started to censor ourselves and censor how we express ourselves, and to be concerned that our story or that our drawing or our coloring was good enough. And with Neverending, we want to push people past that. We want to give them the tools to put out something that they can feel good about and not have to censor themselves. And AI will be a part of doing that. But AI right now, the generative AI that we see right now, it allows people to quickly make something, and if it looks cool, then they made it. If it doesn't, well, the AI made it. So it'll be interesting to see how we balance these tools with the necessity to preserve human creativity and human innovation.
Yeah, and I got one more thing I want to ask you, but I'll just
Sure.
say, I interview a lot of people and men especially, but even women more than before. There's moments in their lives where someone in sports, for example, the coach put them out on the field or the ice in a critical moment, and they remember that moment for the rest of their life as the foundation of their confidence. Same thing with the drawing you're talking about. If someone doesn't say, because we influence people all the time, that's a dog, and just says, well, that's really cool. What are you thinking about doing with that, or whatever, something like that is so in fact impactful and does stay with us. So what you're talking about is real stuff, and again, it goes by osmosis or whatever you want to call it into the full family, into the community, just because people share more and more. I have a feeling that your story is going to be never ending, actually, and really make an impact. And
Thank you.
one of the things we say in LA is leave them wanting more, so we can do a sequel. That's typical LA, I guess. So we'll probably have to do that. But I have one last question though in this part. I love what you're doing is with everything that's happened the last 3 years. I had a client in 2021. He told me, Mark, the year 2020 was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought, what a great comment. what do you, when everything happened, what are you most grateful for and what are you most hopeful for?
So, in 2022, we partnered with a bunch of content creators to create on a project called Anansi's Tapestry of Lives, which is a gaming supplement filled with kind of diverse and representative characters that people could use in the games that they play online or that they're streaming. And I think if I think about it, what I'm most proud of is the fact that every single creator that I reached out to was extremely interested, and we made some big swings. People like Jesse Nakalia, who is a voice actor. He plays Soren on Netflix's hit series, The Dragon Prince. People like Todd Stashwick, who's an actor who is killing it as Captain Liam in Star Trek Picard Season 3. Pro football player Johnny Stanton. Ed Greenwood, who is the creator of the Forgotten Realms, which is where Dungeons and Dragons is based in, is probably one of the most prolific fiction writers I have ever met. Like the guy has like a ginormous list of published books. So the fact that all these people said yes without knowing really anything about me, but just based on what our vision was, is just really compelling to me, and it helps me feel like yes, we're on the right track. We're doing something that is worthwhile. In terms of what I'm hopeful for, 2023 is a hard time economically, and I think it's just going to get harder. And it's an especially hard time for startups. I think there's going to be a lot of really fantastic startups that are growing, that are on track to be successful, that fail because they can't get funding.
Right.
And so my hope is that we don't fall into that category. We are being successful, we are growing. Software is expensive to develop. So my hope is that, you know, our vision and what we've accomplished so far and the promise of what we can accomplish in the future excites enough people, investors, strategic partners, people in media enough that we can continue to get the support that we need to grow and to literally completely revolutionize entertainment and finally help deliver on the promise that we all got from social media, which is that it was going to help make us feel more connected and
Right.
help us better express ourselves. I want us to have that chance to actually deliver on that promise. So that's my hope for 2023.
Well, my hope then is that whoever's going to be listening and seeing you says, "Damn, let's let's call," and stuff like that.
That'd be fantastic.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank
My
you for being
pleasure.
a leader who cares about what's going on out there, and we appreciate you being on the series.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. It was great, Mark. Thank you.
My pleasure.